this way. So you're going to see my notes as well. All right, so I'm Matteo. You've seen me already. This is the second time and last time that you're going to hear from me today. So I was at the V&A, and I was doing this residency, and I was based at the V&A Sackler Center. Do you know what or who the Sacklers are? Hands up, if you know. 1 person, 2 people, 3, 4. Okay, so the Sacklers are a family, a very wealthy family, and they are philanthropists. So they pay into institutions like the V&A, like the MoMA, and many other institutions, mostly in the UK and in America. But do you know how they made their money? Probably not, because you don't know who they are. So they have an empire in pharmaceutical products, and one of those products is at the center of a controversy because it's a highly addictive painkiller. And for about 12 years, they've been misleading the public and doctors about how addictive this thing is. So some institutions started to sever their ties from the Sacklers, but not all institutions. So this is Mr. Tristram Hunt, who is currently the director of the V&A, and apparently he's very proud and grateful to these drug dealers, essentially. And when I discovered this, I was kind of disappointed, as you can imagine, and I thought maybe I could make a game against the Sacklers or against Mr. Hunt. But then I remembered this. This is a proverb from system thinking. Donella Meadows is one of the leading thinkers that back in the 70s, she was theorizing and talking to people about thinking in systems. And one of the typical things that she used to say is that if you don't want to understand something, you have to look at the rules of the game rather than looking at the players. So if you want to understand criminality, for instance, you might want to look at the rules of a system that we call society, for instance, and why some people might feel the need to break those rules as opposed to focus on certain individuals and their behaviors. So likewise, if you want to understand why Mr. Hunt is saying certain things, it might be more interesting to actually look at the rules of the system, the rules of the museum, rather than doing something sort of personalized against him. So this is kind of the promise of Games for Change, which is that you have a complex system, a complex reality, and through the process of game design, you create a simplified model that is inspired by that complex system. And then, hopefully, through the player experience, you can give them a new or a changed understanding of that system, and hopefully also instigate some sort of change. And Games for Change are about quantifying and measuring that social impact. So I thought, okay, maybe I could do something about this. Maybe I could try and test this hypothesis. So what I created is a board game, a cooperative survival role-playing game, in which I invited people that work at the V&A to play as the director of the V&A, or to play as people that they actually work for. So for them, it was a bit of a strange LARP of sorts, where they were sort of in and out of reality, not quite sure where the boundaries were. But they had to pretend that for a round there would be the director of the museum, and the rules are relatively simple. You've got these KPIs, key performance indicators. So together you have to make decisions as members of the board of directors that will impact those KPIs. And together you try to survive financially, reputationally, try to make sure that your staff are not too angry and run away. Same thing for the visitors. And you do it by working on challenges. So every round you appoint a director, and the director will pick a challenge, and then everyone can come up with ideas to solve that challenge and propose them to the rest of the board, and also quantify how they might impact the KPIs, and then try to get resources, try to get consensus built around that idea and to bring it into implementation. So when I started playtesting with people that work at the museum, I was inviting them over to the studio over the lunch break, and I was feeding them with tea and coffee and cakes, and I was giving them this cards. So that these are 3 examples from challenge cards that I was giving them. And initially, I was giving them ready-made challenge cards. They're all based around this sort of frame of design thinking. So how might we ... And I created those questions based on what I thought would be interesting to discuss, or what I thought that the people that work at the museum would be interested in. So things like diversity, gender pay gap, decolonization, dodgy philanthropies, all the things that I was actually interested in. And what I discovered is that some people were actually interested in, but some people just couldn't give a shit. So they would come, they would eat, they would drink, and I was like, I don't really know. I don't want to talk about decolonization. I want to talk about people that run around the museum and their actual daily worries. So I changed the approach, and I gave people a sort of randomized challenge generator, which I can show you, which is here. So it has a bunch of words, and every time that you click this button, it comes up with a semi-sensical question. So this was a way to give them an initial set of inspiration, and then ask them to create their own challenge cards. So rather than just give them a blank card and say, tell me about your challenges, I would give them this. They spin it around a few times, and as you can see, some of the things don't make sense, but sometimes they could inspiring a new idea. So people would come up with their own challenges, with their own events, then we would shuffle them into the game and we would play. And that actually worked in the sense that people started to engage with the game much more because they felt a sense of ownership over the questions and over the challenges that they wanted to discuss. So, in a sense, this is not a game, or rather, it's not a balanced game for sure, because the input that you get from players is so big that they can easily tip it out of balance. But it's still quite useful to talk about it as a game, because whenever I talk to players, they would always talk about it in terms of game, because it puts them in the mindset of being playful, and it gives them a sort of role to play. It gives them a sort of magic circle where you can think about new ideas, you can think about a different museum without being stuck in your own daily role. And also it gave them a few lightweight rules which would ensure that you would have a fair amount of time to present your ideas, and then also a way to discuss it and to try to come to a consensus together. So more than a game is a framework of roles and rules. And I was looking for some sort of visual metaphor to represent this thing. And the best thing I could come up with is a sausage machine. So a sausage machine, because, first of all, it's very important that people bring their own ingredients to grind through and to make their own sausage. So this idea that the content is really owned by the players. So you bring the ingredients, and then you get those ingredients through the sausage machine. And the sausage machine is really just a grinder. It's a simple machine. You can open it, you can understand how it works. So likewise, the game is very simple. It has just a few rules. But this idea helps people engage with it and helps people feel like they can actually make a contribution. So does it work? Well, I don't know. It depends on what you mean by work. So if you understand institutional change as a set of behaviors that you sort of impose from management on people, then no, it doesn't work. But if you are trying to encourage some critical thinking and collaborative decision-making, then maybe it could work. And I'm saying maybe because there are a few factors that may contribute to making it work. First of all, it's a cooperative game, meaning that everyone is working together to try and find a solution to a common problem. And also, as a cooperative board game, it forces people, quite literally, to talk to each other. You don't have to hold that information from each other. And then the other thing is that it's a simple game, and it's optimized for fairness and for qualitative conversation. So I try to remove all the numbers. Apart from the the KPI table, which is what people push around. But then again, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If you facilitate it well enough, then people will start getting into the conversations, and they will forget that this could be also a numbers game. So where this is at is it's an experiment. I don't have any quantitative data to share with you, but I'm really interested to try it with smaller institutions, with pretty much any institutions, because this was developed in a museum, but it could be applied to other institutions. And here I'm sharing a few links that connect to, well, this presentation as well as other articles that I wrote, the tool that I just showed you. So if any of you is interested in continuing these experiments, if you're working for an organization that might want to try out a cooperative game that gets people to talk and to imagine ways in which you could change the organization, then get in touch. I'm going to be around for the whole weekend. Also, you can find me on Twitter @Matteo. Thank you.